All right, folks, let's talk about a pauper deck that I've wanted to build for a long time. I finally built it, and I've been playing with it a little bit. I call it Mono White Delver because instead of being a Delver deck, you're a Griffin Rider deck, which is the card that I've always wanted to see actually matter in pauper. Um, because, like Delver, it's a 1/1 vanilla on the front side, but if you flip it, it's a 4/4 flying, so it's an aggressively costed evasive threat. Unlike Delver, putting instants and sorceries into your deck is usually a good thing. Putting a bunch of griffins into your deck means you have a horrible deck, right? So this really is not like Delver at all. It's not a good competitive staple, but it has a Delver-like game plan because you just want to make your Griffin Riders big and try and win with them. So this is what I've come up with. Mind you, I don't play a whole lot of Pauper. I've made tweaks to this as I've been going. I don't really think this is the ideal build of this deck, so tell me how you would build it. But let's talk about what I cooked up. Javelineers, sort of a mono white staple, helps you deal with X1s. Can block a 2/2, can ping down something as big as a 3/3 in this deck since I have three of them. Probably worth running the whole four. That might be something I do eventually with this deck. Mana Tithe, just because I like to get people with Mana Tithe. I figure if I'm playing a pet deck, why not? Also, it's a Delver deck, right? So you've got to have counter spells. It's the only one available in mono white. So not necessarily a great card, but one I like to try and get people with. Same deal with Ramosian Rally. Right? When you're playing a weird deck like this, part of the advantage is that you can surprise people. So since this is a free spell in white, it can also surprise people. This used to be a huge pauper staple, but it's fallen by the wayside a little bit. Thraben Inspector as some ways to generate card advantage. Same with Squadron Hawk. Right? You have one core Skyfisher to reset Javelineers, reset Inspector, reset Journey to Nowheres and O-Rings. Right? Possible also that there should be more core Skyfishers. It's also similar to Silverbeak Griffin, which is the reason this deck even works now. It's just a like cheap evasive threat, right? When Silverbeak Griffin was released in one of the M19 intro decks, it's in like a Johnny's Planeswalker deck. I realized that I had to play with it in Pauper with Griffin Rider because before the only two drops are Fledgling Griffin, which is still in the deck, right? Just because we need more Griffins and we need more cheap Griffins, and Azorius First-Wing, which is in white blue. So there could also be a white blue version of this deck, which has another two drop available to it, and also has counter magic and card draw available to it. But I couldn't really theory craft of what that would look like, so I wanted to start with mono white and see what that would be. So as far as your Griffin package, you've got Fledgling Griffin just to be there. It can also be an evasive threat if you manage to hit your land drops, so not the most embarrassing. Um, you got your Silverbeak Griffins, and in the three drop slot, you've got Diving Griffins and Sunspire Griffins, just out of kind of necessity. Then the removal package is basically O-Ring and Unmake at the three drop slot, and then a complement of Journeys. Battle Screech is just another good kind of card advantage white card, and Apostle's Blessing is sort of another pet card of mine. The goal of the Blessings and the Mana Tithe are to have a one mana way to stop your Griffin Riders from dying or to stop your only Griffins from dying. That said, this deck still has a really bad matchup against Control. Um, as for the sideboard, Fragmentizes are sort of for any artifact-based decks or aura-based decks, but I haven't been boarding them in much. I've got Cop Blue for Delver decks, Cop Green for Stompy and Elves, sometimes Bogles, right? Cop Red for Burn, and Cop White because I'm pretty confident this deck is too slow to beat other white decks as well. Another Journey, in case we have a creature-heavy deck, Celestial Flare for Boggles, Leave No Trace for Boggles, two O-Rings for any non-creature threats we need to answer, and Prismatic Strands for monocolor decks. So that's sort of the concept of this, what I'm calling mono white Delver, sort of just to be cheeky, but it's my pet Griffin deck. So we'll see if we can beat real decks while playing with fun Griffin cards. Griffin Tribal, we're going to be playing first, which we will happily accept. This hand is pretty bad. Can we afford to mulligan it, though? Because we might get a hand that's even worse. I don't think we can, necessarily. I think we can cycle our secluded steps and make that the game plan here. We get to curve out 2-drop into 3-drop. We'd be doing fine if this was limited. Could be Boggles or some form of ramp. Likely Boggles. We've got an okay sideboard against Boggles. And they don't seem to... They don't have a turn 1 Bogle, so it's probably Hedgewalker next turn. It seems we'll be trying to race them with 4 power flyers, so we'll see how that goes for us. It does not seem like it'll go well for us. There's definitely some decent technology in the sideboard for fighting the Bogles matchup. Still also no guarantee that's what we're dealing with here. So I don't mind playing the Griffin Rider instead of the Diving Griffin, because it represents more damage. The old post-combat give flying. And lets us cycle the secluded step. Griffin Rider is so much fun. 2 mana 4/4 flying, that's the reason why we do this. That's the reason for the season. Alright, let's see what they've got. Aura Gnarlid. An actual Journey to Nowhereable creature. So it looks like we might get there with the race. Yeah, we don't want to O-ring it, we want to journey it. Because then we can O-ring a key enchantment when they play a hexproof threat. Yeah, and they've had enough. The power of the Griffins. Oh my goodness. They just did not have a particularly good hand. Alright, so let's go get our technology from the sideboard. Cop Green is some technology. Leave No Trace is some technology. Celestial Flares, Prismatic Strands, and maybe another O-ring. Maybe all the O-rings, since we'll probably take out all the journeys. We still need to make 4 cuts, so they don't generally have a ton of removal, so the Apostle's Blessings can go. Javelineers nor Mana Tithe do much that I'm excited about, but Javelineers at least are guys. How do we feel about this? This should be fine. Alright, Griffins versus Bogles. This is a questionable keep. I feel like it's worth mulliganing. This is fine. We definitely now want to draw a Squadron Hawk. So the last draw was more exciting because there was ways to deal with enchantments in the Leave No Trace. We don't have any of our sideboard cards yet. And it's unlikely we'll be able to race without access to the sideboard stuff. So they've got tap land, so this could be Rancor. So I suppose we'll lead on Griffin Rider, since that could be the faster clock. Next turn is likely the Silver Beak Griffin. So they're going to journey the Griffin Rider. That's fine. I think with that in mind, we don't need to play a Griffin. We'd rather play the Squadron Hawk, draw a bunch of Squadron Hawks to thin the deck. Increase the odds of hitting our sideboard stuff. I still like the Squadron Hawk, even though we could now O-ring the journey. Get our birdies. Play our land. Pass. A land so that we can double spell and or battle screech would be ideal. We will see what opponent plays. This could be Ancestral Mask, which will get O-ringed. I think we take it rather than just chump with the Hawk. Yeah, I like O-ring the Mask. Mask is a pretty relevant card at all times. And we'll leave the Hawk back in case they're stuck with Rancor or something. Then a land still lets us double spell. So they're representing Vines of the Vastwood or some other instant speed fun, but we'll just make them have it, make them show it to us. I'm wondering what they're playing that they'd want a Glade Cover Scout in the graveyard. There's another couple of Bogles. They just have the Bogle heavy draw with not a lot of pump. I think instead of cycling this, we just play it out. So that next turn we'll double spell for sure. Play out a Hawk. Any of the sideboard cards would give me a lot more peace of mind. But they're sort of low on resources, and they've got a lot of Bogles, and we took care of the big payoff. If there's another Ancestral Mask, we can be taking a beating. Armadillo Cloak also pretty annoying. Again, if they're representing Vines, we'll make them have it. Celestial Flare would be an excellent draw. So this is kind of unfortunate that it's an untapped land draw because we could have had this as a redraw. Let's produce as much flying power and toughness as we can. The old Silverbeak Griffin plus Griffin Rider. So Ancestral Mask or Ethereal Armor is a big deal, but we can handle like another Armadillo Cloak if that's what they have. Yeah, they've got the most Bogle heavy draw possible. So how do we want to sequence this? It's kind of difficult to say. I guess we'll just go Hawk, Javelineers. And we'll probably attack with the Griffin Rider. Even though the Griffin Rider is holding back the Ledge Walker. Because theoretically, if they don't draw any good enchantments, then the Ledgewalker is still blocked by Silverbeak Hawk. And we can start, pretending to offer a clock. Okay, Heliod's Pilgrim will go get something that is likely going to be problematic, like an Ancestral Mask. Ancestral Mask is pretty beatable, so probably Ethereal Armor. Now we're sort of in hope to find... Ancestral Mask seems like a weird choice to me, because we'll probably still have enough flying to deal with that. We'll go ahead and flash it back by tapping these guys down, and we'll leave the team back to see how our opponent handles this enchantment and attacking phase here. But we would love to see Celestial Flare soon, or O-Ring. Basically anything that can turn this Ledgewalker off would be nice. So let's see how big this makes the guy. 9/9. And they have the Ethereal Armor. That would be a problem. Alright, so it's an 11/11. Which we actually cannot block. So we'll go to 1 and they'll gain a substantial amount of life. But that's okay, because next turn we can still block. They get the double lifelink, which is sort of a fun bit about that lifelink card. The way it interacts with Armadillo Cloak, because this doesn't grant you lifelink. So that's sort of fun. So Celestial Flare is just what the Doctor ordered, provided they attack with only the Ledgewalker again. Let's hold back on the attack in case they attack with both and they sniff out the Celestial Flare. Because depending on what they draw... Yeah, so it's all up to them to sniff out the Celestial Flare here. We're in luck. And they've decided that is concession worthy, which makes sense. I mean, we'd be at 1, but we'd have the board. So that's a fun matchup against Bogles. We do have a lot of good sideboard technology to handle. Our opponent could have really punished us by attacking with the Slippery Bogle. I feel like, or even the Heliod's Pilgrim, or all three, and they're at such a healthy life total that I feel like you can play around Celestial Flare if you're aware of it. Yeah, fun matchup against Bogles. Again, it's always risky to keep these one-landers, but all we need is another land, and we get to go off. Griffin Rider's into Fledgling Griffin. Just the kind of unbeatable opening you expect from mono-white Griffins. Opponent's on something blue. All right. Not hitting that land scary, but we got another turn to do it. We got all 2s. All right, all we need is one more land. So they chose not to daze us, or they didn't have it. If this is Delver, Javelineers is relevant. Can also be picked back up with Skyfisher, depending on the scenario. Okay. Well, we're getting things that we can play, even though we're missing a land drop. Our opponent has also missed a land drop, though, and our opponent mulliganed. So, putting ourselves in sort of a similar type of position. There's some degree of argument for not attacking with the Javelineers, so that if they play a X1, we get to tap it on their end step. But, I mean, let's just do what we do, you know? Let's just get the beats going while we're both stuck on one. All right. Let's see who draws out of this first. This is riveting Magic the Gathering. So, would we have drawn out of it? that is just a straight up no. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. When would we have hit a land? How many cards down is that? Oh my goodness. So talk about getting completely lucky there. No idea what our opponent's up to, but we can do some speculative boarding. We're playing some more Pauper. We're playing some more Griffins. Let's do it. Yeah, we want to go first. GPD says, good luck. Good luck. Have fun to you too, sir. I think it's bad to keep this hand, but there's certain decks that this hand is great against, so we might as well just keep it and try for that. We have untapped land and several 1-drops that in conjunction can equal a kill spell for a 3 toughness creature. And block as 2/2s. Or, I should say, or block as 2/2s. And if they're playing Delver or something, then the added value of pinging down X1s is there. Griffin Rider is pretty soft in this hand, but Battle Screech will be pretty strong when we get to it. Nice, so we'll happily ping down an Elvish Mystic. I think we'll keep the Javelineers coming rather than play out the Raven Inspector, because we'd likely want to play Squadron Hawk on 2 rather than crack a clue. Finding some lands eventually would be nice. But we're not that lucky. I mean, we are lucky in that we're playing against a deck that played an X1 on turn 1 that our 1/1s answered, and one that could be critical to their game plan, considering that they mulliganed. They would be playing whatever this 3 is. They would have been playing Lead the Stampede last turn. Is this Elves? This is a rather slow start from Elves, and I suppose Elves is one of the decks that plays the Elvish Mystic. Yep. So these are some pretty good Elves they've got going here. Journey to Nowhere being online would be nice. And it is indeed. Let's see, what elves did they reveal? Timberwatch Elf being a 1/2 means let's only attack with the Javelineer. That already threw its Javelin. That way we can Javelineer down one of the Timberwatch Elves. And Journey to Nowhere, probably the Huntmaster. And let's pollute the board with Squadron Hawks. One potential downside of not getting into damage with the Javelineers is that this would be the one turn where I still could, so it's sort of like missing 2 points of damage. That's it. If this is how they're sequencing it, we'll still get in with the Javelineers next turn. So now if we hit a Griffin, does that make me want to play out Griffin Rider? In case we hit an untapped land for Griffin Rider. I'm going to go ahead and say yeah. it's fun. It's too fun not to. Here comes the Hunt Master. So this will have to eat a Journey to Nowhere because it gets out of hand if we don't. We also hit a 2-drop Griffin, which is pretty fun. But I think we just got to stop the Lissalana Hunt Master rather than get Froggy. We'll get Froggy next turn. And we might be at a point now that we're able to race in the air with Battle Screech. So I'm not crazy about our matchup against elves, but Javelineers ended up being pretty nice against them. And another matchup where we have some technology at our disposal. Quirion Ranger's kind of cool here because it'll let them reset a land and maybe play another one. So that's sort of the power level of elves. It's kind of what their game plan is. But I think we're going to be pretty content to chump block with the Javelineers. They've done their job and jam in the air. Griffin Rider is turned on and ready to go. Itself representing a 2-turn clock. Like this Squadron Hawk attack didn't even change the clock. So some concern about whether you even do that, but if they kill a Griffin Rider, then we've still got Silverbeak plus Squadron Hawk to hit in for the 3. So they have some potential to commit more to the board, but unless it's got reach, right, there's not a lot you can do about what we're up to. So kind of a sweet match against elves there. A tough keep, but it turned out that it was a deck that those Javelineers are good against. So I don't necessarily like Mana Tithe against a deck that does what elves does. Cop Green is part of the mix here. I think another Journey is fine. And I think we also want access to our Prismatic Strands. And that really might be it that we want to bring in. I can see Guardian's Pledge being kind of slow. I don't really think there's much else that we would need. We got the full complement of Journeys, and then O-Ring and Unmake as our removal spell. I guess Apostle's Blessing is weak, so we can think about bringing in maybe just another O-Ring, since there are key elf threats that you have to remove. Let's try it like that. Prismatic Strands should be pretty powerful here against any sort of monocolored deck. It's got the potential to buy you just 2 turns out of nowhere. I think this is another risky hand that I'll go ahead and keep. Being on the draw, Javelineers is not quite as good as it was on the play, but it should still be fine, and provided we get some access to lands, I think we still play the Javelineer. Next turn it can be Thraben Inspector plus Secluded Step, or ideally hit an untapped land for Squadron Hawk. Javelineers does good work in this matchup. Oh, this is going to be nice. So I still like Thraben Inspector. And there's no real reason to do this immediately, but there's no reason to wait either. In the case that maybe they have play an elf plus, give it Shroud. We'll have O-Ring online if they drop one of the big deal elven threats. I think we'll wait to see what they use all this mana for rather than O-Ring a mana producer. We can go ahead and swing with both. I could see O-Ring a mana producer. I don't know if I like it, because they're going to get all their things down no matter what we do. The problem here is not hitting a land drop so that we can double spell. So it's sort of a questionable decision of what we play. I guess we'll play the Squadron Hawk so that we can deck thin a little bit. I'm not sure how much the deck thinning with Squadron Hawk actually matters, but it would be feel bad to draw one. And if we get an untapped land, Griffin Rider plus Fledgling Griffin gives us a lot of power on the board. Well-Wisher is cool. They'll have mana enough to play their entire hand. We just gotta hope they don't have something that refuels their hand here. Like if this last thing is Lead the Stampede, okay. Timberwatch Elf still somewhat problematic. It guarantees they'll get in for some damage. So we've likely got to O-Ring it. Thanks to Korean Ranger, they still have access to a lot of mana to maybe stop this O-Ring from coming through. And they still have the ability to double pump elves. So we're probably going to commit a lot of blocks this turn. But it won't necessarily matter because whatever goes unblocked is just going to get a giant pump. A +12/+12 pump. But I think it's what we've got to do because they might pump to save some of their creatures rather than get the big hit in, and then they can save 2 creatures. We'll lose our board, they'll lose. Yeah. We'll lose our board, they'll lose 1 thing. And then if we manage to hit a removal spell for the Timberwatch Elves, like a Journey or something, we're in pretty good shape. That wasn't it. Which might put us in pretty bad shape. Now it's an interesting question of what we even do. I think that might be it. Because we could buy time with the Prismatic Strands, but I don't think it'll be good enough. Next card down was Journey. We have to take a gigantic hit here, and then we have to play Journey next turn, and all we would have been able to accomplish is Fog for 1 turn, then get Journey, then get back into it. So maybe that was sort of like the exact out was waiting on that to happen. As it stands, how much damage will we take? Pump up to 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we take 14, then we answer this. We're at 5, then we take 4, and we likely still die. So maybe the Prismatics, maybe we just had to bank on that drawing that Prismatic Strands. Untapped land would mean we would get 2. Get to double spell that next turn, which would be nice. Alright, let's see what we can do when we're on the play here. A lot of tap lands, not really what we want to see, but Javelineers is. None of our sideboard technology, unfortunately, but we can have a pretty fast clock. We'll lead with the Javelineer so we can ping down the first elf. We may cycle one of these secluded steps if we draw untapped land. We might still cycle this. It might just be a bad idea to cycle it. So they're going to go ahead and rebuy that land, which might indicate that that's their only land in hand. Yeah, I think this is fine. To not cycle the step, because as you see, we didn't draw an untapped land. Go ahead and serve. We're the deck that has to win by damage, after all, before they just do, you know, elf stuff. Which, I mean, damage is their win condition as well, but we don't really have a combo kill feel like the elf deck does. So Birch Lore kind of allows for a lot of explosive and interesting stuff, so we might get to see our opponent play out basically their whole hand here. Korean Ranger being used in a really interesting way here as mana ramp. The elf deck has a lot of game, so we're likely to play. Ooh, the reach on that is very interesting. That's a really cool piece of sideboard technology that our opponent has cooked up for us. So let's play out one of our Griffins. One thing that them playing Spider Silk Armor does, though, is let us potentially get some value out of this rally, depending on how they block in the coming turns, and also get some interesting value out of O-ringing the enchantment later on down the road. So let's just play one of our Griffins. It's kind of difficult to tell which one we want on the battlefield. I'm going to go with the Vigilant one. And go get some damage in. It takes a big block to beat Griffin Rider. So they still have a bunch of mana available to them. And we'll see what it is they want to deploy this time. We're likely saving this O-ring for an Elven threat rather than the Spider Silk Armor, but the fact that the option exists is interesting. Using your land drop for the Korean Ranger trick sort of bottlenecks you at the one land, but that's okay because as you can see, this deck operates pretty well with only the one land, as long as it has some other means of mana production available to it. So I guess we commit another Griffin, attack with all of our Griffins, and Ramosian Rally if anything gets blocked. We can't really play around instant speed shenanigans from our opponent. We've got to just see if we can clock them. So a fun little tricksy card here. So our guys will get through and we'll get more damage in. Yeah. It was an old Pauper staple, and apparently has fallen by the wayside, so it can definitely surprise people. If you're not used to white having access to a free spell, you can get into scenarios like this. So now, opponent looking like they're going to want to hold back blockers. Depending on what comes next with their mana production. We've still got the O-ring. we've got more flying threats available to us. One of the nice angles of this deck over a traditional white deck, that the traditional white deck is still better, don't get me wrong, but the fact that in a format like this where it's so streamlined, 2/2, 2/3 flyers are still kind of fairly big creatures. So even though they're not cost effective and they're kind of clunky, they can be interesting for your opponents to deal with. So what's the 4-drop that they want, or what do they want to put this for mana? Is this a Lizalana Huntmaster? Yeah. So this is a pretty easy O-ring target, and that'll actually give us lethal damage, I believe. Yeah, because they only left the one blocker up. Technically, though, they can stop themselves from dying by untapping the Korean Rangers. But yeah, they've seen enough. So Griffins strikes again, takes down another tribal deck. Interesting and kind of hard choice here. I think we're going to keep this since we're on the draw, but we'll need to draw into more lands to make this particularly good. Not being on the play also makes the Javelineers not insane. Oh, this will be a fun matchup. I haven't gotten to play against Burn yet. This might even be Goblins. Right? So the Javelineers threatens to ping down the Frenzied Goblin, which is sweet. Hitting lands is the imperative now. Journey to Nowhere into Unmake will about put this away in our favor. Javelineers eats a Lightning Bolt, which makes perfect sense. I don't know that we'd even Journey this particular Goblin, since we can make them point more burn at the next Javelineer, or the next Javelineer will take care of it. But we'll want our land drop. A land drop here would have been really nice to hold up the Apostle's Blessing. But we can't, you can't have it all. Our opponent took them all. They're green-red stomping. Now the Journey to Nowhere is going to be great. We just need to hit that land. We can jump here. I'm not sure that it's worth it, because all we need to do is hit a land, and we've got this Goblin. Okay. Now we can block an Apostle's Blessing to take a little bit less damage. They're cascading into something. Is this just a pure value cascade? That's kind of fun. It is a 2-for-1, though. Creatures get +1/+0 until end of turn isn't necessarily worth an entire card. So we'll give our creature pro-red to avoid taking this much damage this turn. That'll stop this ability from triggering and let us block freely. And then we'll have to hit an untapped land next turn to be able to get there with this draw. And we did. So it looks like we Journey to Nowhere the Frenzied Goblin and plan on taking the damage from the Curd Ape or chumping the Curd Ape, depending on if it gets bigger than this. Burning Tree Emissary, a good card. I think it looks like we're planning on taking the damage from the Curd Ape. Yeah, we will be, because we'll be blocking and trading with the Rip Clan Crasher here. not the land we necessarily wanted, since playing Sunspire Griffin would be pretty sweet here. But let's just play the Silverbeak Griffin that can still trade with the Burning Tree. Then if we hit a land, an untapped land here, Battle Screech seems excellent. So now we can't, now we're chumping. And unmaking the Burning Tree, and still taking the damage from the Curt Ape. I think that's our best line, and I guess there's not a reason to wait on it. If we hit an untapped land, Sunspire Griffin plus Griffin Rider is a very good turn for us. So in this case, I think we want to Battle Screech to create more blockers. So we'll take our beats. A 3-2 Shroud. Oh, I guess a 2-1 for now. So we can double spell in a way that's pretty satisfying. Trying to decide whether we want to leave up 3 bird tokens by flashing back here, if we want to leave up 4. I think we'd rather leave up 4 blockers for the time being. Could also start getting in with the birds, but we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Mudbrawler Cohort, a very fun creature. Our opponent may feel as though they can't attack, which is a good place to be. It indicates that we're starting to turn the corner. Instead, they're going to go with the all-out attack. I think that's also a totally acceptable line here. So we'll be blocking pretty well, but it puts us into bolt range. So we can always just die to a lightning bolt off the top now. Pretty nicely positioned for our opponent. We'll keep playing out lands, although I'm not sure that it matters too much. And I suppose we'll want to play Sunspire Griffin. Because we're dead to a lightning bolt either way, I guess let's start jamming our opponent and hoping that they get some misses. Could be a pump spell, or they could just be making sure that we block because we'll still have to. Being dead to a bolt either way maybe means we attack with both, but I'm not sure that that super changes things. Now I can threaten a double block. We will get to attack for 6 in the air next turn. And then opponent's on a 2-turn clock. So fade lightning bolt. Opponent might already have it, you know, just playing with our heart here. So we had to beat 2 cards. No lightning bolt, no like make the guy unblockable and get in for the extra point. So we faded it. Most of the threats seem red, so pro red seems good. Circle of Protection red. Let's see. Journey to Nowhere seems powerful. Circle of Protection red seems powerful. Apostle's Blessing seems powerful. Guardian's Pledge seems iffy. Mana Tides seem iffy. Fogs seem pretty powerful. I mean, maybe we don't want to be spending life against an aggressive deck. So we'll just let them kill our creatures. We have 29 creatures. Really more like 31 creatures. So maybe then just an extra piece of cheap removal in Celestial Flare. I'm fine with that. This seems like a fine hand. Start with the Javelineer. Maybe ping, and then reset it with the Skyfisher. Opponent does have a lot of X1, so it's likely it'll find a home. Or a target, I should say. And then we'll get to double spell on turn 3. There's some argument for the Inspector first. Inspector's better to Skyfish back. So they didn't crack their Evo at end. Maybe they only kept Evo and were hoping to draw another land. But that makes me inclined to just play something that's not a Skyfisher right now so that we can reset something with the Skyfisher. Let's just play some burbs, get more burbs. Only 2 birds here because we don't want to discard. And I don't think I want to attack with the Javelineer. I'd rather see, if you crack those Evolving Wilds, what you play, in case it's an X1 so that we can ping it down with the Javelineers. So unfortunately, there's never a time when we can ping down the Kurt Ape, even though it says it's a 1/1 on the front side. They're unlikely to attack their 2/2 into Javelineers since they know about the trick. Funnily enough, we have an even funnier trick this time. I like getting a Diving Griffin down here. The funnier trick, of course, being we now have the ability to Ramosian Rally and Javelineers to take down a 2/3 and have our Javelineers survive. So they're done with that Griffin. Very interesting. Oh, so yeah, so of course they're not going to attack with a 2/2 because they are likely thinking about the trick we used earlier. So now we'll try our hand at having this trick work. If they use a pump spell to disrupt this, I don't think that we care all that much. So I think we're likely to be playing a Thriving Inspector, playing a Skyfisher to get it back. And then playing it again. Seems fine. And we'll leave everything back on defense for now. And then hopefully the card advantage from these clues will get us the rest of the way. I could see an argument for pinging in with the Hawks, but I don't think it's necessary. I think I'll take the 1-for-1 trade, even though we like our Skyfisher. We're just going to hopefully be drawing a lot more cards than our opponent. We don't need to let them keep things that they can slap auras onto. Let's just play 2 Hawks. And I don't know why I did the ability that time. Get in with 1. And we still have pretty good blocks as it stands. And even though it's just, death by 1,000 cuts, we've got to do damage sometime. Ooh, Blazing Volley's so nice here. Pretty fun stuff from our opponent. We'll just be taking the hit. And we'll probably be double or triple spelling. I think we can cycle this. See if there's a 2 we'd rather play. So it's just another land. So the Raven Inspector Hawk. There's no real reason to hold the lands in hand. So we might as well play them. And Blazing Volley did wonders for our opponent. We can think about taking out the X1s in our deck if we go to a game 3, so that the Blazing Volleys become a dead hand, or become dead in our opponent's hand. Get rid of the Hawk package. Maybe keep the Griffin Rider since they won't always be X1s. Get rid of the Javelineers and see if there's other stuff we'd like. Heel Cutter is a powerful effect. That they'll be able to do constantly, so we'll likely have to double block the Heel Cutter. Celestial Flare is pretty good. We'll probably be casting that rather than cracking a clue, because we're just looking to stabilize. And we probably will park both of our guys in front of one of the 2/2s, whichever of the 2/2s sticks around. I imagine they keep the Rip Clan Crasher around since it's more valuable, as it pumps their monocolors matter creature, or their dual colors matter creatures. And we'll just hope that they don't have anything that super punishes this block. We'll play Sunspire Griffin plus leave up Crack a Clue. And we'll see how we do from here. I will be double blocking if they attack, yeah. Just to kind of make them have it and hope that the clues will get us the rest of the way. So now that Griffin Rider is an actual card, we'll play Griffin Rider, Throbbing Inspector, and I feel like we'll serve with the Griffin. Leave up, of course, Crack a Clue. Because the Griffin Rider still holds down the Curd Ape for now. Or in the worst case scenario, we chump with one of our 3-bit inspectors. So our opponent's consistently playing out their lands, but they have something in hand that we don't know about. So they scoop it up at that point. They feel like we've got the Air Force covered. So that is Mono White Griffins taking out Stompy, even despite the value of their wipe the board with the Blazing Volley. Not bad. All right, so we mulligan this no land hand. This is kind of a sloppy one, but I think we're obligated to keep it at this point. And we'll scry that land to the top, and we'll just go Squadron Hawk. Turn 2. So we're up against probably another mono white deck if they're running Secluded Steppes. So this could be fun. This could be Soul Sisters. This could be mono white aggro with Cavalry Drillmaster. So it'll be fun to test our deck against theirs. So turn 2 is likely to be Squadron Hawk. Maybe they play something that makes us want to journey it. Yeah, so this is the aggressive mono-white deck. I feel like we're just going to play Squadron Hawk and take our lumps. Sunspire Griffin and the core Skyfisher do a pretty good job blocking the Loyal Cathar. And Journey and Unmakes do a pretty good job unmaking the Loyal Cathar. So we've got that going for us. I like just playing the Griffin here because we can also reset our Journey to Nowhere with I suppose if we're not blocking with the Squadron Hawk, we should have attacked to get that point in. But who knows? There's a world where we chump with it, right? I don't really see it. So we discovered that world because I'll trade a Squadron Hawk for the front half of one of these Loyal Cathars, I think. And it's also possible that we just don't do that because we can unmake the Veteran Armorer. Let's see. I think I want to do it, though. We need to start getting things off the board. Our deck is that much slower than our opponent's deck that we don't want to just die out of nowhere. So they're going with the Ramosian Rally to probably kill off our Griffin instead and get in for some more damage. Okay, so they decided to still just kill the Hawk, which does not make sense, I don't think, unless they... I'm not sure why you'd play it that way. War Falcon's pretty sweet as well. So we can now double spell. So we could Journey something plus Core Skyfisher or Squadron Hawk plus Skyfisher. I think we'll do Squadron Hawk. There's also, Squadron Hawk. But I think getting the Skyfisher down is better. Just as a blocker, we don't get to do the fun trick of reusing the Journey, but we can keep our removal for things that our creature base doesn't answer. We don't have anything more expensive than a 4, really, so we're fine with just bouncing this, staying at 4 mana. This will allow us to cycle Secluded Steppe later. And we've got pretty good blocks. We'll see if they've got more pumps, and if we can just work our way through what they're doing, and then go over the top of it later on. So they're going to journey one of our 2/3 flyers here. Could be another pump spell that they're advertising here, but let's... maybe it's not, because they would have attacked with the other stuff were it another pump spell. A Ramosian Rally of our own, potentially valuable. So what do we want to do? Double Squadron Hawk. Leave up Ramosian Rally as a blocking technique. Seems alright with me. We're out of other Squadron Hawks to get, so we'll just put our burbs down and see what our opponent wants to do. The sort of hope against this matchup is that we're acting more like the mid-range deck. Maybe to make some soldiers. 1/2 soldiers are pretty legit. This is a little scary, depending on what they have, but I think we'll want to block like this, because this still will let our guys trade. 1+ number of cards named Killer and Warcry and Grievous. So they're going to pump everything for 1. We're going to pump everything for 1. And we stay at parity. Or at least we stay with what was going to happen. So I guess we want to double spell Fledgling Griffin plus Journey. Get rid of the Loyal Cathar, since that's... it's possible that we didn't even need to do that, and we could take some more damage from them. But let's turn off attacks for now, see what they draw. We're at a low life total. We don't want to be too tricksy or anything. Probably cycle away the Secluded Steppe, see if we can draw into something that we'd want to play. Silverbeak Griffin is just fine. Do we start attacking? I'm never the best judge of if we should start attacking, but I feel like probably. Otherwise the game doesn't end, right? This leaves them with some strong draws. I'm surprised to see them choose not to attack. I guess we don't mind playing this land, pump our Fledgling Griffin, or rather, take it to the air, and then we can attack with 2 things this turn. Plan on playing another Fledgling Griffin and maybe unmaking something if things go bad for us in combat. So we'll play another land burb. I guess I shouldn't call Griffins burbs. They're more majestic than that. Half burb. I do love playing with Griffins in Pauper. They're also just a creature type that I really like. So there's an argument for, do we unmake the War Falcon here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Then we put him on a 2-turn clock. If we attack with everything. It could be super greedy. Like maybe we just want to... Yeah, I think it might be too greedy. Just keep the unmake until we have to pull the trigger on it. O-Ring is also pretty good. we'll keep just attacking with 2 things for now. Leave up the removal, see what happens. I'm just probably, if the War Falcon comes in, blocking it with the Silverbeak Griffin. We could always unmake, or I guess we can't. We can O-ring that Journey to Nowhere to get back the Skyfisher, bouncing our Journey to Nowhere, using that Journey. So like we can be tricksy, basically, is what I'm saying there. At this point, I'm gonna unmake the burb, because we've also got the O-ring action, and the way our opponent's been playing this, it's sort of like they don't have much. Let's see, if they have another Kildoran Warcry, everything gets +2/+2, so all the knights will do a lot to us. But if we swing with everything, then yeah, so I'm gonna swing with everything because we'll still have 2 blockers. Because I'm gonna play Silverbeak Griffin, and I'm gonna play O-ring on the Journey to get back our Skyfisher, bouncing a land. I wonder if there's a more tricksy way to do this, like if picking up the Journey is better or picking up the O-ring is kind of interesting, but we'll just do this, and then now we have 2 blockers, so even if they make 2 soldiers at end step and then attack and pump them all, we would still not just die. We will be blocking if they swing in. And then we've got lethal in the air, because now when we make this land drop, our Griffins will take to the sky. Yeah, so we'll be blocking both. No reason to die to any kind of pump spell shenanigans. And Ramosian Rally is not enough by itself to save these guys. And we've still got a lethal attacking force. I'm trying to think if there's anything that blows us out. I'm going to attack with everything. Yeah. So the nightmare scenario is like they can gain life at instant speed or something, and then pump the veteran swordsmith on the crackback to kill us, but they couldn't do that. So one thing that was sort of fun in this matchup is that we operated like a just slightly slower version of the white deck, which means we're just slightly slow enough that we can play a more mid-rangey role with our big Griffins and try to win that way, which is kind of fun. In this matchup, creature removal is king. I could see the Celestial Flares being good. I could see the Journey being good. Prismatic Strands is an all-star, and Cop White is an all-star. We might not need the Apostles' Blessings. We might not need the Mana Tithes. We might not need all of the... I still like the Javelineers. We might not need the Guardian's Pledge, because it's kind of expensive. And we're going to be dumping our mana into something like Cop White. There's a world where we don't need the O-ring, but I like the utility of having the O-ring. Maybe even over an unmake, but I don't mind the unmake. I'm going to just shave a Griffin to make room for all the removal. I'm not sure if that's the answer here, but let's try it like that. I'm also not sure about cutting the Apostles' Blessings or the Mana Tithe, or even if those should be main deckable cards. I really just don't know. This is a fine hand, and sort of a fun one if we can presume that they don't have a lot of interaction. Turn 2 Griffin Rider, turn 3 Griffin Rider, turn 4 Griffin represents a decent chunk of damage. So kind of a linear and easily disruptible hand, but Could be good, depending on what our opponent's hand looks like. Opponent's finally decided that they're keeping and playing a War Falcon. Pretty good. Pretty good. If War Falcon said can't attack unless you control a Griffin, we'd be doing it. We'd have a 4 of War Falcons in here. Alright, so we're going to do a tap land and then plan on playing out Griffin Riders and cheesing our opponent out that way. We're off to the races. At this rate, we'll get to double spell on turn 4, which will be kind of nice. Double Griffin hits you for 8, looks like the plan. And we've got to see if we die in the in-between time. Could also be right to play a Griffin this turn so that our Griffin Rider can start blocking things. As loath as I am to admit it, I sort of think that's the world we live in. Because they're on the play. So even though this sort of combo-y, we'd go 8, 16, 24, but now they even have a Skyfisher to block. So we'll just try and whittle out their resources. So here's the question. Do you journey the Griffin or the Griffin Rider? Opponent likes journeying the Griffin Rider. So we can't take all of this, and we wouldn't like them to have a Skyfisher anymore. So why don't we block and pump and see if they have a pump spell in hand? And if they do, we're in a lot of trouble. I don't mind playing it that way. Another option is just to block the War Falcon and try the same thing. It seems to be likely that they have a pump spell of their own, but this play is the more beneficial if they don't have it. But seeing that they have it, it's really, really punishing for us. Loyal Cathar works super nicely with Ramosian Rally. So this, if we had done this block, we would have still traded. So that was the other option available to us. This one, of course, plays out much worse for us. We've got to Griffin Rider, Fledgling Griffin here, and see if that is enough. Let's try it again. I don't think we change much. Mana type could consider coming in. We'll definitely play first, and I think this is a keepable hand. It's not the best. I liked the last hand more just because of the abusable nature of Griffin Rider plus the amount of Griffins we had, but Javelineers might be able to pick off an X1, Three-Headed Inspector draws a card, and we get to play something every turn. They're just not incredibly exciting plays every turn. We turn off turn 1 War Falcon for them, though. We can even go ahead and play this, or it might be better to cycle it. Yeah, let's just cycle it, because we don't necessarily need 4th land just yet. If only you had Vigilance, you could even attack into X2s. There they go, they've got their own Griffins. Leonin Skyhunter being exactly a functional reprint, or rather the Silverbeak Griffin being a functional reprint of the Leonin Skyhunter. Kind of fun. Let's go ahead and cycle. And we'll play a Diving Griffin and plan on just trading with the Skyhunter. they go to pump, we will hope that they only have a +1 pump and use the Javelineer to shore that up a little bit. Bouncing their 3-bit inspector, probably. It's a good way to get to generate extra clues. Oh, they just went with the land, so they could play a 1-drop here. Javelineers of their own. I like that from our opponent because that complicates our decision making pretty heavily. To the point where I think we have to ping down their Javelineer. See if they, want to pump to save it. Now we have access to prismatic strands, but we no longer have. We might sack a clue here and see if we can hit a 2-drop Griffin or a Griffin Rider, which is a 2-mana 4/4 flyer. So that's kind of sweet. And we'll pass. Can't attack with anything. This might prompt them to journey to Nowhere our Diving Griffin, which lets them get in for 4. It's a big hit to take. So that could mean they don't have the journey or that they don't care enough to journey yet. A journey of our own is sort of fun, and I think we go ahead and snap it off. Take the Skyfisher away. So that we can attack with all of our flyers, create some more land chump blockers, and we win the flying race. They can double block to trade Griffin Rider. Based on the way they blocked also, doesn't look like we don't need to stop anymore. Doesn't look like they have a pump spell, or they could use a pump spell to get us there. And then the 3-bit inspectors will provide us with some card advantage over the course of the game here. And additionally, bodies to tap down for prismatic strands, which might be super important in this matchup. So they're going searching. They're going to serve with the whole gang. So, presuming they can pump twice. This is a 4/4. We're going to be taking a big amount of damage here. It's sort of interesting how we should think about blocking. I like the idea of giving up a 3-bit inspector. Let's just do the sort of obvious blocks. So something like this. I think this is just enough value that they'd consider using a pump spell if they have it. Second Griffin Rider is kind of nice as well. Let's make it a 2-turn clock without committing the Griffin Rider. And plan on prismatic strandsing the all-out attack. This is kind of sweet. I love Palace Sentinels. See if they'll use a pump spell, and then maybe we'll eat the pump spell with prismatic strands. And if they don't, we might just take this. Yeah. So white sources don't deal damage this turn. That includes 2 creatures. Then we can go ahead and jam with just the Air Force. Steal the Monarchy. Stealing the Monarchy here is kind of absurd. And this doesn't cost mana in addition to tapping a creature, does it? No. So we'll tap out with the ability to fog, and with a handful of hawks, handful of burbs. And we'll draw an extra card thanks to the Stolen Monarchy. And we drew another Prismatic Strands, which just about does it. It's such a back-breaking Mirror Breaker card. I imagine they have access to it too, if they've got Palace Sentinels. I think we'll just fire it off. They could mana type it if they run that. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Our Griffin Riders are still 1/1s, which is also funny. We might even... Yeah, no need. I was going to say we might even sack a clue. Let's see. I'm not sure anything punishes us for this. We'll even attack with a Squadron Hawk in case they have Celestial Flare. And this should do it. It depends on what they have in hand, but this should do the trick. They could Strands us. Or a different fog. Very interesting. So we'll probably be doing some serious blocking. Our opponent cycles a Secluded Step. That's kind of good for us because we know that, that at least was a bad draw. Maybe they hit double land, which would spell doom for them. So we'll block like this, take the 2. We've got to back up Griffin in case they pump here. We give up the Monarchy, the sweet, sweet Monarchy. And we find out what the last thing in hand is for them. Silverbeak Griffin's a pretty sweet draw. They have another card in hand, so I think I still will attack with the Squadron Hawk. That sort of is a lethal attack if we attack with all the flyers, right? Because they'd want to block the 4/4s, and then this 3 damage he would get in, so they'd have to have something else. Finally, let us declare our attackers, so we will be attacking with all of our flyers. I think our opponent disconnected. They're not declaring blocks, so it could be that they have fog, but they didn't have fog and they died. So we got there. So we took down the other, like the dominant mono white deck right now. That's sort of heartening, right? We're kind of just a mid-rangier version of what they're doing based on the goofiness of Griffins, but it was actually able to just have enough bigger power and toughness creatures to block their guys. So they ended up playing a lot better than I had envisioned that matchup going.